Um, Mr. Montrose.
Aye.
Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Burchevich. And I'm an aye. Here, public hearing is open. Is there anybody here to speak for or against, changing grievance day? Who wants to ban it all together, have it for a week? Every day, yeah. Okay, seeing none, I need a motion to close that public hearing. Motion by Mr. Burchevich, second. Second by Mr. Montroy. Is there any discussion? Okay, Mr. Martin.
Aye.
Mr. Montroy.
Aye.
Mr. Gibbons.
Aye.
Mr. Burchevich.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Carried. Okay, now we want to do the local law for that, right?
Yep, now you're gonna
All
adopt
in
it.
favor of changing the grievance day? Need a motion, please?
I'll move that, John.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second. Second by Mr. Burchevich. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carries. Okay, public hearing for the Wild. Mr. Martin will take that over.
As you know, we introduced this law in our last board meeting, so now we need to open this public hearing. So can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So,
Motion by John Burchevich, second.
second,
By Dan Gibbons. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. John Becker,
I'm abstaining.
abstaining. Mr. Burchevich,
aye.
Dan Gibbons,
Aye.
John Montroy,
I'm abstaining.
and I'm an aye. Okay, public hearing is now open. Anyone want to speak for or against this proposed law for the Wild project? Art?
Art Lilio, 2708 Waterbury Road, in Canastota. I'm in favor of this project. You know, all you have to do is look down the road, and we've got a guy who's incredibly creative, lots of energy, and he's put us on the recreational map when we didn't expect to ever be there. It's amazing. You walk into his places, when you walk out, you think good, you think clean, and you think fun. Not necessarily in that order, but in any event, I'm excited to see this impressive recreational project in our town. There are some details that perhaps need some more fleshing out by the planning board, and I'd like to ask for maybe a continuation of this public hearing until we get more answers. But you look through the details, and there's no waste effluent control plan. There's no odor control plan. There's going to be a lot of people in here. He's provided for parking for one vehicle per camping area, and yet they're going to have up to 6 people in some of these things. I don't think there's sufficient parking in any event. There's no landscaping plan besides however many trees we're going to buy. We need to know how that screening buffering is going to look between campsites along the property lines. Speaking of the property lines, he's talking about building within 5 feet of the property line, and I'd like to see that pushed back, say, 25 feet. I also did not find a final lighting plan. So I'm in favor of this project, but I'd like to see some more details coming out of the planning board process. The local emergency authorities need to weigh in writing, and the correct ones, whoever's going to be covering that area, the police, EMS, and fire, with the final plans. Certainly want to see a pre-opening review by the codes officer. There doesn't seem to be a noise control plan. I just see some major unfinished issues that the planning board hasn't weighed in on yet, and so I thought that perhaps this public hearing might be a little premature, but if you'll at least continue it until your planning board does weigh in on the various issues that remain open. It appears that this is an incredibly beneficial project for this town, and thanks for the time to comment and support this plan.
Would you wanna?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
We're fortunate because we have the owner of the project and his design professional, and they're aware of your questions, and I believe there are answers to all of those, but I'll let Ed discuss some of those, and if Jeff needs to comment on them, he can as well. Ed, do you wanna run down those?
Yep. My name's Ed Reed. I'm a civil engineer, head of the project. Working with Jeff since the beginning to work out all these details that you brought up. I did get your email late yesterday, had a chance to kind of buzz through those. We have some responses for those, but ultimately, obviously, it's gonna be up to them to decide. You know, we've been before the planning board a number of times, these issues have come up, we've discussed them, just generally. But obviously, so one of the things, just so you understand, there's still approvals that are gonna be required at higher levels. You got DOH, DOT, DEC, so you had a couple of questions with respect to affluent discharge. We're working on that. We've opened up dialogue with both Health Department and DEC. But both of those entities are gonna have to provide approvals and permits for those. So that will be flushed out by them, you know, with respect to those direct questions. Trying to think, I've got.
Well, the local emergency, these are, your questions are good, and you know that, they're good. Fortunately, I think, the developer's design team has answers for almost all of these. And one thing I'll mention is the chief is here. The chief did weigh in on the last version of the plans in writing. And, do you need to address anything else, chief?
No, all the concerns that we had have been answered and are taken care of. So as far as the fire department, we're on board and everything's going good for us.
And on top of that, one of the things that the planning board had recommended and that the town board included in the legislation is an annual inspection prior to, whatever particular time of the year it'll be inspected to make sure everything's still in compliance with, if it gets approved, whatever gets approved. The noise control, I think, is managed by the quiet hours that are in the plan itself. So they do have some quiet hours for the RV park. I forget if they're 10 at night to 8 a.m. And there has to be staff on hand to enforce that, which there would be. We would make sure of that. So that's local emergency. What other ones did we not address here, Art? Oh, yeah, so that's set, the property line setbacks under this law are set by the planning board, subject to approval by the town board. Did anybody want to address like concerns about the property line setbacks that Art's talking about?
On both sides of the property, you have the school bus garage and you have a rise, and there's really no reason it's not gonna go into their area at all. The 5 foot or 25 foot makes no difference other than decreasing the size of my property inside of the park. It's not like you have housing next to you or sheds, different things. There's plenty of buffer zone. A lot along the property lines, there's thick, dense hedgerow on the north side, so, and the east side or the west side along the bus garage, that's a thick, dense hedgerow too, so there's plenty of buffer zones in between neighboring properties.
And Art, on the lighting, I believe that the lighting will be downcast, you know, the dark sky compliant, so that there's not going to be any, there should not be any spillage onto neighboring properties or into the highway, which is the key to it. So again, at the time of construction, they just have to show what shielding they're gonna use and assure that it'll remain on site. The stormwater, I can give you more on the stormwater, but I believe you're meeting all of the required stormwater control measures that'll be in your SWIP.
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
And there'll be reporting requirements under the SWIP.
And just like the speedies permit for wastewater, we'll have to get a speedies permit for stormwater.
Okay.
And that'll be continually maintained.
In the stormwater, there'll be an agreement, as we do with every project. We'll have an agreement in place between the property owner and the town for enforcement of the stormwater measures, and that gets filed in the county clerk's office, just like we've done with really all the other bigger projects that we've had in the town. We wouldn't change it for that. So what else you got there? Let's see. We talked about noise, review. And that's the key, as Ed said, is it does come back. So if this does get approved, it does circle back prior to physical construction back to the planning board to be sure that what's going to be constructed is whatever this board approves, should they approve. And there's that safety net exists there. And of course, all the inspections and so on that would take place. Those are the answers that I think we have for you today.
Okay, so thank you.
Are there any other comments or concerns on this project? We have received recommendation from the town planning board that has been given to us with the same concerns. Art, make sure that this thing finishes up and, it's just to get to the final thing, but this would allow that process to continue and to finalize, is what it should, that's the whole goal of this process. If I'm not hearing anything else, then I'd entertain a motion to close this public hearing. Motion to close the public hearing by Dan Gibbons. I have a second.
Second.
Second by John Rashevich. We'll do a roll call vote. Dave Montroy.
Steve. Aye.
Dan Gibbons. Aye. John Rashevich.
Aye.
John Becker.
Same.
And I'm an aye. Okay. Then, do we want to move forward with approving the local law? Are we going to continue to, the public hearing is now closed.
Make the motion that we approve the public law.
Okay, so we have a motion by John Rashevich to approve local law B for the town of Sullivan. We have a second?
I'll second that.
Dan Gibbons with a second. Any discussion? I will say that this project, as Art has mentioned, is quite a big project. It's a complex project. The planning board has done an incredible job. I think Mr. Taylor and his architect have done a very good job too of getting it to where it needed to be. Yet we have more to go. Obviously, we have all those final details to get finished up, and I look forward to getting those things buttoned up. So, all right, then let's take a roll call vote. Mr. Montroy.
Abstain.
Dan Gibbons.
Aye.
John Rashevich.
Aye.
Mr. Becker.
Abstain.
And I'm an aye. Motion is passed.
Jill, I'll follow up with you on the balance of that stuff.
Good?
Yeah, good.
You're free to move about the country.
I have to wait.
Yeah, now you gotta go to work.
Next, we have review for bids of our sidewalk project, opened bids yesterday. We had one bid of $62,100. From,
Central paving.
Central Paving. I got it, guys. Frank Tangora.
Yeah.
Acme Road, Frankfurt, New York. That's the only bid. We bid it one other time, did not get any takers, so I guess today's this guy's lucky day.
He does good work.
Yes, we need a motion to accept this bid. So this is for the sidewalk in front of the Troopers building and the steps at the Parks and Rec building.
And some sidewalk over there, yeah.
Some sidewalk.
Cleans up some trip hazards for us.
So it's been, the one over in front of the Troopers barracks has been bad for a while, so. Okay, need a motion to accept this bid, please?
I'm gonna move that, John.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Montroy. Is there any discussion?
John, the only thing I saw with the bid bond, there's just a little typo on the date. They gotta cross out, they have 2021, along with 2022. We just want them to, somebody run over and just scribble that out and initial it for us. And then there is a requirement for a performance, bond, prior to them undertaking
Yeah.
construction. We just wanna make sure that gets, filed with the town.
Okay. Don, we'll give them a call, tell them they got to just initial the date. Okay. All right, very good. Our Hamilton Brown legal agreement,
You're gonna call the question, I think, on that.
Yeah, we just had a motion, the
Yeah.
second.
I only have a motion, a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, all in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay. Sorry about that. Usually doesn't happen. Only when we turn it around. Okay, next we have Hamilton Brown legal agreement. This is the legal agreement between the Town of Sullivan and Costello Cooney Huron for our Hamilton Brown Bushnell Shore Road Water Project, which has been 30 years in the making, and we're finally almost there. Need a motion for that, please?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Martin, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Berskevich. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, our shared service agreement for the highway, which is for the county shared services. I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Berskevich, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Martin. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye. Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, next we have a list of polling places for the town of Sullivan. We need to approve them for the county and for our elections offices. I need a motion for this, please.
So.
Motion by Mr. Berskevich, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Martin. Is there any discussion?
So this is all the same places we've always been.
Yeah, just new leases, you
Yep.
gotta sign the leases. So that has to be renewed every year. So, where, 2 years ago, we had the extra 10 days of early voting at the county, right where the offices are, you could access records very simply. Last year, the state legislature changed that, said it had to be in the largest municipality in the county, so that extra 10 days came here. I don't have the numbers on who early voted. And next year, it's changed to the city in a county. So it will go to the city of Oneida next year, and we're gonna, or for this year, we're gonna stick to one polling place. All right, any other discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay. We do not have any budget modifications, firefighter applications, Dennis, anything? Okay. Before we go into executive session, let's discuss personnel. Does anybody have anything you wanna discuss? Okay, last 2 weeks ago, I gave the state of the county. I'll just give a brief rundown and then I'm gonna go over the, governor's, state budget just briefly. I talked about consolidation by 2030 of tax collection, assessment, codes, fire, ambulances, and there will be some, have to be consolidation of townships. They just cannot afford to keep functioning the way that we're functioning. Also, I talked about the county being in good financial condition. We're in good shape. We finished the state-of-the-art highway garage in Morrisville or in Eaton this year. That was a $16 million project. We combined the bonds for that project along with the courthouse project, and the payment on those two projects, $36 million in projects, equal the payment that we were paying on our emergency broadband project that we did, I think that was 15 years ago, our 911 project. So we're in good shape there. I talked about putting out $1 million for a buy local campaign for our local farmers to get them access to markets and marketing, internet, print advertising, perhaps a little television advertising. Our buy local products don't get the exposure that they should. We have one gentleman, for example, who does butter that rivals one of the milk plants around here, very good butter, but nobody knows where to buy it. And this will help out him and many others. I got on this kick because 86% of the beef market is controlled by 4 companies, and you don't know what you're getting, so buy local and help out your local farmers. Keep your farmland sustainable. our farmers are looking at hard times as usual, and these solar companies are coming in and offering them big money. And once these farms are covered with solar panels, the land is no good. You can't use it for farming anymore. So, we need to keep our agriculture vibrant and able to feed the masses. I seen an article the other day on China. Only 7% of their land mass can support their people, so they're going to have to buy their food from someplace. And it makes absolutely no sense to cover our farmland with solar panels when these markets are emerging and our farmers can feed the world. And we need to get back to that. So I'm proposing that we move up to $1 million of our ARPA money towards that. I'm not sure if that will be that large of an amount, but I'm going to ask for that. Again, we're working on our mental health task force, which has been brought around by the COVID-19 crisis. Children, teenagers, people are seeking mental health services at the county that have never sought them before. We've done a study, the county put up the money for a study, and we should have that back by the end of January to formulate a plan and see where we go from here. Everybody in here knows somebody that's been affected by COVID-19, and it isn't always physical, the issues that happen. It's mental also. We've got 2 folks from the school here, and they see it every day, so we need to do something with that in that study. That was pretty much it in a nutshell. I again was elected by the board to be the chair, so it's my 15th year as the chair of the county. I'm now the 3rd longest running chair in county history, which I don't know if we can say that's good and that's bad. And it's an honor to have them select me. We've had 6 new supervisors on the board, and it's an honor to be selected with them. The first week in February, first meeting, I'll give a state of the town, where we're at as a town. Pretty much reflects where we're at as a county. We're in good financial shape, and I'll give all the details on that day. So, and that, I have the executive state budget, county impact report from NISAC. I'll just go over this briefly. From our new governor, Governor Hochul. They're looking at changes in taxation and finance. We're going to aim. They're looking at keeping the AIM whole, aid to municipalities. Last year, they took in, counties had to make municipalities whole with what the states cut, and now the state is going to make everybody whole, so we don't need to worry about that anymore, including distressed hospitals. The state had taken some funds out of sales tax to fund the distressed hospitals. That will no longer take place. Currently, 846 towns and 497 or 79 villages receive a total of $59.1 million in AIM-related payments funded through local sales tax collections. The executive budget ends the practices and resumes the state general fund support to create and extend tax credits for farms, increase in investment tax credit to 20%, up from 4% for farm businesses, doubling the farm workforce retention credit to $1,200, creating a refundable tax credit for overtime hours paid for farm employees, and improved school lunch programs, community colleges, higher education, expand part-time students' access to TAP, tuition assistance. They also repeal TAP prohibition for incarcerated individuals. That means that since 1995, there's been a prohibition on incarcerated individuals being able to access the tuition assistance program. The governor's now proposing that that go away. Provides financial aid to workforce credential programs at community colleges for high demand fields. We've seen that a few years ago on CNC machines. We worked with Mohawk Valley Community College on a program to train just folks on CNC machines. It was a wildly great program. It was full. Turned out a lot of good trained individuals because there is a demand for that. Also raise the community college funding floor. The executive budget will maintain a funding floor for community colleges at 100% of the prior year funding, up from 98% floor for the fiscal year 22. Early childhood development and children with special needs. There's additional funding in for that. Economic development provides small business tax relief. The budget provides tax relief to those businesses by increasing the small business subtraction modification from 5% to 15% of the net business income or farm income, expanding the benefit to include pass-through entities with less than 1.5 million. Modernize the tax law to include the vacation rental industry. Connect All initiative. That's in investing in New York's broadband. Build New York support MWBEs. That has to do with construction. Provide increased resources and up to $11 million in additional funding to improve the MWBE program and ensure timely and efficient processing of MWBE certifications. Restore New York Communities program. There's additional funding in there for that. Launch a $1 billion small business plan. Governor Hochul is proposing a nearly $1 billion plan focused on the state's small business. Funding for small businesses of the future, capital and venture debt awards to emerging small businesses in the innovation sector, including minority and women-owned businesses often overlooked. Small business COVID capital investment tax credit, $250 million tax credit to small businesses that took COVID-related capital expenses. Seed funding for small businesses. I get a lot of calls on this. Seed funding for small businesses, a $200 million flexible grant program for early stage businesses related, recently opened despite COVID-19, and small business lending initiative providing reduced interest rate and accessible loans expanding small business. So that's good. Startup funding for cannabis businesses, regional economic development council, she continues them, which includes a downtown revitalization initiative of $100 million. New York Forward, that's the DRI program, she funds that at $100 million. And of course, the Olympic Regional Development Authority gets $105 million. Elections, they propose a 10-day voter registration deadline. She will amend the state law to lower the voter registration deadline from 25 days to 10 days. College campus polling locations, she proposes a change on that. On the environment, she provides a tax credit for the phase out of certain grade of fuel oil. Effective July 1st, 2023, the use of number 6 fuel oil for heating of any building facility in New York State is prohibited. What is number 6 fuel oil? I've never even heard of that.
Oh, yeah.
Is it waste oil?
No,
It's a real heavy, it's a less than refined.
That's straight crude or what?
Yeah, it's pretty close. And they used to run it through the steam boilers, so there's not, you're gonna lose 2 people, there aren't that many people.
Okay, I was wondering about that. That's why I wanted to ask you, what the heck is number 6 fuel? I never even heard of it before. Okay, so that's a big deal to them. $4 billion clean water, clean air, green jobs, environmental bond act. She would like to do offshore wind investment, continued investment in clean water infrastructure. She gives an additional $500 million to that, which is good for us because we do a lot of water projects. Increased funding for the EPF, Environmental Protection Fund, to protect water resources, advance conservation efforts. Agriculture-focused climate investments. The executive budget includes $12 million for climate resilient farms and $12.5 million for soil and water conservation districts to support climate-friendly, environmentally focused agriculture. Fund the Nourish New York initiative to feed New Yorkers and support farmers. The DWR SLF, the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund, that she still keeps that funded, which is very good. Up to $300 million. There is some ethics reform change. I find it ironic that she wants to push this down on the local officials when their own house is kind of not clean. So, general government, provide additional cybersecurity funding, countywide shared services initiative, $200 million for that. goes along with what I said on my county, state of the county address. Local government efficiency grants, $200,000 per municipality, $1 million per grant for consortium, and maximum planning grant of $12,500 per municipality. Housing and rental assistance program. I think this is very important. Seeing how Syracuse and Onondaga County is back on track with employment, businesses moving back to Onondaga County. I talked to Kip Hicks, our economic development director here in Madison County, and that new chip plant that they're talking about putting in Syracuse is another couple thousand jobs. I think Amazon is having a hard time filling their employment roles. It's going to put increased pressure on us as a bedroom community for Syracuse for housing. I think we're going to see another housing boom here, and there's a lot of money in this budget for housing. Launch a $25 billion comprehensive housing plan. This budget advances a new $25 billion 5-year housing plan to create and preserve 100,000 affordable homes, including 10,000 homes with support services for vulnerable populations, and electrify. I don't know what this is, and electrify an additional 50,000 homes as part of the state's plan to electrify 1 million homes and make another 1 million electrification ready. I always thought everybody had electricity. I don't know what that is.
Electric heat.
Downstate, I know they're gonna make electrical fuel.
I think it's in every house.
Okay.
You have to have a charging station in every house now.
Funding includes $5.7 billion in capital resources, $8.8 billion in state and federal tax credits and other federal allocations for $11 billion to support the operation of shelters and support housing units to provide rental subsidies. The plan expands on existing state programs and creates new ones, including the following. Supportive housing, $1.5 billion for the construction of 7,000 supportive housing units and rehabilitation of 3,000 supportive housing units throughout the state towards the creation of 20,000 units over 15 years. Multifamily new construction, $1 billion for new constructive or adaptive reuse rental housing affordable to households that earn up to 66% of the area median household income. Senior housing, $300 million for developing or rehabilitating affordable housing targeted to low-income seniors age 60 and above. Middle-income housing, $90 million for new constructive, adaptive reuse, or reconstructive of rental housing affordable to households that earn between 60 and 130% of the AMI. Public housing preservation, $150 million for substantial or moderate rehab and or the demolition and replacement through new construction of public housing authority. Multiple family preservation, $450 million for substantial and moderate rehabilitation of affordable multifamily rental housing units currently under a regulatory agreement. Small building rehab, $60 million for rehabilitation and or demolition and replacement through new construction of buildings of 5 to 40 units. Accessory dwelling units, $85 million for the creation of or rehabilitation of accessory dwelling units, including backyard cottages, attics, garages, and basements. Manufactured homes, $20 million for mobile and manufacturing home programs. Homeownership programs, $400 million for promoting homeownership among families of low and moderate income and stimulating the development, stabilization, and preservation of New York communities. This includes a $50 million pilot program for affordable homeownership opportunities that patronize residential control. So she puts a big emphasis on housing. Human services, child care investment, building an $832 million in existing subsidies and $2.3 billion in federal child care resources and budget includes new investment to support children, parents, and child care industry. Invest in home visiting. Adjust foster care rates. Funds the human services COLA, 5.4%. Safety net assistance. Invest in runaway and homeless youth housing. Judiciary and court-related matters provide a market rate for interest on court judgments. Office of Indigent and Legal Services continue the Harrell Herring settlement. Medicaid and healthcare, $10 billion in healthcare investment, $2 billion to support healthcare worker wages, $1.2 billion to support healthcare and mental hygiene, $500 million for cost of living adjustments, $2.4 billion for healthcare capital infrastructure, a Medicaid global cap, which is good for us at the county. Repeals across the board rate cut to health providers. The budget also proposes to increase rate across the board by 1%, which would provide $3.7 billion in new funding to health providers over several years. That's how large the Medicaid program is in healthcare services in New York State. They're increasing it by 1%, which increases the budget $3.7 billion. Continuing the state takeover of local Medicaid costs, the state will assume nearly $5.2 billion in costs that would have otherwise been incurred by localities. Frontline healthcare and mental hygiene worker bonuses, expansion of statutory shift pay differential, mental health, which I talked about in the county, support the federal creation of 988 crisis hotline. It's $35 million for fiscal year 23. Commit an additional $15 million to develop housing, expand crisis services, $4.5 million, strengthen suicide prevention, labor and personal services, modernizing the civil service exams, public health and nursing homes, increase county public health funding, opioid stewardship and settlement investments, COVID-19 wastewater surveillance, which again, the county was ahead of the curve on that. We were doing that way over a year ago, doing samples at the colleges and stuff, and it does work. Public safety, continue to implement the Raise the Age. Actions to address gun violence, triple resources for gun crime trafficking efforts, $215,000. Strengthen law enforcement partnerships. Executive budget provides $13.1 million to expand the use of community stabilization units that partner the most experienced state troopers with local law enforcement. Expand the state's direct support of local law enforcement. The executive budget increases funding from to $18.2 million for New York's nationally recognized gun efforts. Triple investment in community-based gun violence response, and provide pretrial services to promote public safety. The executive budget provides $10 million in new funding for probation and community-based providers for localities. Shared services, countywide shared services initiative, transportation, local highways and bridges. They continue the funding on that. Funding for the Consolidated Highway Improvement Program and Marcaselli Program, which is the bridges, is maintained at last year's level of $577.8 million. The budget provides $100 million for the new Pave Our Potholes program and $150 million in highway aid through the Pave New York program, and $200 million to fund local projects for Bridge New York. Veterans, it extends the hire of vet credit for 3 years, which is a good thing. Reinforce support of our veterans, $10,000 per year. Executive budget increases the minimum annual state funding to veteran service agencies from $10,000 to $25,000. The executive budget also includes $1 million to expand the number of veterans benefit advisors. It expands the Joseph P. Dwyer program statewide, which is the executive budget includes $7.7 million to expand the Joseph P. Dwyer peer-to-peer veteran support program statewide, providing vital peer support and counseling services to veterans who are transitioning from military service to civilian life. Very good program. Workforce development establishes the Workforce Economic Development Program, and that's pretty much it. I think that's all of $150 billion, I think. So.
Bail reform. Bail reform?
What's that?
Bail reform?
Nothing in there about it.
Property tax relief?
Yeah. Yes, there is on property tax, if they want to move up the cap for, property tax.
Pretty, a lot of money and pretty high level. We have committees within the county that are looking at where we might be able to get some of that money.
All the departments take and they'll dissect this through NISAC. This is something, the service that New York State Association of Counties provides. And so each county department will take what's in here respective to their department, and they'll cut it down, and Mark will cut it down. See where we get. Yep. Okay, does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, need a motion to go into executive session for advice of counsel, please? Motion by Mr. Gibbons, second. Second by Mr. Martin. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by voting aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?